evening and welcome. What would 18 months of social distancing do to our economy? And why we should demand an answer to that question, we will show you a hidden nugget of information in the Imperial College report tonight. Then, Joe Biden's ties to China at a time when the Chinese Communist Party has unleashed a deadly virus on the world. Plus, an MSNBC analyst wants to prosecute President Trump for negligent homicide, and Philadelphia police stop arresting people who commit crimes. I'm your host, Liz Wheeler, and this is Tipping Points. Last night I posted a Twitter poll, and I want to read it to you tonight. Here was the question I asked. If extreme social distancing was necessary for 18 months, and not just several weeks, to prevent the spread of COVID-19, would you do it? 16,000 people responded to my poll. 31.1% said yes, feasible and necessary. 68.9% said no, economic collapse. Why did I ask this question? And why is this question, even if it's just a Twitter poll and not a scientific survey, why is this answer critical to our collective national response to the Chinese coronavirus? There's a nugget of information hidden in the Imperial College report that nobody's talking about. No mainstream media outlet is reporting. Even a lot of conservatives and Republicans have accepted the premise of the Imperial College report without question, when the premise appears faulty in multiple places. Let me back up. The Imperial College report is being used by politicians as the premise for government's reactions to the COVID-19 outbreak. The Imperial College report hypothetically predicts that between 2 and 4 million Americans will die due to the coronavirus. It's no wonder people are paranoid and feel panic. The problem is, the premise of the Imperial College report appears to be faulty. As we pointed out last night, the death rates Imperial College used in their model to predict the number of Americans who will die is the 3.4% case fatality rate that's been widely debunked here in the United States. In fact, the latest death rate here in the U.S. is 1.6%. And even that is most likely significantly inflated because we don't have widespread testing of people with mild or moderate symptoms. We're only testing, for the most part, people in high-risk demographics with serious symptoms. Imperial College also assumes in their model that until a vaccine is developed and deployed, the U.S. does nothing medically to mitigate the mortality rate of the virus when people contract it, even though existing antiviral medication is already found to be helpful in fighting COVID-19. This background is important because when governments are forcing private commerce to stop, shutting down private business, which inevitably leads to economic collapse, the politicians mandating this economic collapse better have a valid reason for it. And if their reason is the Imperial College report, which is based on what appears to be a faulty premise, then we have a problem. So going back to the Twitter poll, why did I ask that question about 18 months of extreme social distancing? Because the hidden nugget in the Imperial College report says the only way to stop the spread of COVID-19 in the United States is extreme social distancing. Quarantine for sick people and their family members, social distancing for everybody, the whole population. Public events banned, workspaces emptied, schools closed, colleges shuttered, everything. According to Imperial College, that will work, but only if we do that extreme social distancing for 18 months until a vaccine is tested and deployed on the full population. If we relax extreme social distancing after 2 weeks, or 2 months, or 6 months, or even a year, according to Imperial College, the virus will come back and kill millions of Americans. But that's not what we've been hearing from politicians or the experts in the administration, is it? No. We've been told to suffer through extreme social distancing for 2 weeks until the end of March, maybe a couple weeks longer, and that's it. And this is where we get to the economic impacts. If we're forced into extreme social distancing, what happens when we come out? What happens to our economy? And don't be Greta Thunberg saying, how dare you talk about fairy tales of eternal economic growth. The economy is not some inanimate object, some inert entity. The economy is people. It's you. It's me. It's my brother's small business and your mom's life savings. It's families providing for their children and paying their bills. It's real. It's us. And by the way, according to the Imperial College report, everybody is still expected to contract COVID-19, even with extreme social distancing, just at a slower rate, the flatten the curve theory. But at what point will Americans on long-term quarantine who are still going to contract the COVID-19 virus eventually, just slightly delayed by extreme social distancing that will throw the economy off the cliff in the meantime, realize that people die on our highway systems every day? Most of those deaths are not the fault of the people who die, and if we shut down our highways, we could avoid those deaths. But we don't shut down the highways. Why? Because they're a staple to a vibrant, thriving economy that people rely on for their livelihoods and well-being. So we as a nation do what we can to mitigate the accidents that cause the deaths, but we don't allow the government to close the highways. We keep on trucking, literally, because it's critical to our economy, which is critical to the lives and livelihoods of hundreds of millions of Americans. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do everything that we can within reason to prevent the death of our beloved elderly population from COVID-19. Of course we should. My own grandparents are in this high-risk demographic. It's personal to me. But what is reasonable? What is effective? What is devastating? And what's the balance? As Holman Jenkins Jr. asks in the Wall Street Journal, and I quote, "Wouldn't it make more sense to isolate the vulnerable instead of quarantining everybody? Why aren't politicians who are dictating the policy asking these questions and answering these questions?" As professor of medicine and epidemiology at Stanford, John Ioannidis suggests, why aren't we testing a randomized sample of the population to determine the incidence of the virus and the true death rate before we impose political measures that ultimately might do more harm than good? We don't know because we don't have the data. And how do politicians know what to do without that data? Why are we still relying on predictive, hypothetical models that are projecting doomsday scenarios based on faulty, incomplete, or inaccurate numbers? What I'm saying tonight is this, and millions of Americans feel the same way I do. Governments are basing their reaction on the Imperial College report or other predictive models similar to it that say, if we want to stop the spread of COVID-19, extreme social distancing would be necessary for 18 months. After 5 days of social distancing, 70% of respondents on my Twitter poll already say they would not do it for 18 months. So if we are not going to enact extreme social distancing for 18 months, and we aren't, shouldn't we think awfully carefully before we devastate the economy by extreme social distancing the way that we're doing right now? With me now, social media director and reporter for the Washington